and set the recording. Okay. Um, hey everyone, thanks for joining me. This is going to be the first episode of our new Green Network, and I'm really excited to introduce to you Ray, also known as Free Fire. Fire Free?
I'm actually, so yeah, it's like this long thing, but yes, I am fire free, and all of my social media is free fire.
I know I love that name a lot. Let me just read a short bio. As a survivor and healer of trauma, Firefree has used her journey to thrive through her pain, including healing beyond the murder of her father when she was 15, was motivated to grow forward and assist others to thrive beyond their personal challenges and traumas. Her poetry collection, Commit to Healing, addresses her own lessons and tramps while learning to cope with with a bachelor's and master's in psychology. Fire has been a featured poet and speaker for numerous events in her communities, including Western Michigan's University's suicide prevention and other community informational programs. Fire has taught others how to heal and adopt positive coping skills through writing and poetry. So I saw some of your poetry online, and I know we've talked before and we kind of gotten to know each other a little bit more, but have you always been a writer? Have you always just found therapy through writing?
I have. I'm one of those people who I come from a narcissistic family, so there's a lot of part of the reason why I have, like, my birth name is Regina, and it's a beautiful name, and I love my name, but it's also, I also connect with a lot of restriction and a lot of anxiety and a lot of trauma with that. So fire and even going by Ray professionally allows me to have a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more autonomy in who I am as a person.
I love it. I love it. So that was actually one of our first questions. Do you want to expand any more about why you chose that name or how long you've been using that name?
There are so many ties to that name. One of the biggest things was like when I started writing again, because I had to go through this big rebirth. And so, there's our natural birth where, we go through we go through this coming into the world, through like blood and being uncovered and cleaned up, and all these people are around us. And then there are like some of the rebirths that we hear about through like drug and alcohol recovery, when it's kind of like everything got burned to the ground, so you kind of have to like rise through the ashes. And so I actually left a relationship that was quite abusive, and it made me have to like walk through the fires of my life, like through the coals and the fires of my life, and re-establish the fact that regardless of how much was going on, I am still here. And when I did that, it was like, I really want to own this. And so fire free is the encapsulation of me being able to be like, I own this part of my life. And yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's like the phoenix, you know.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
beautiful. I'm so glad. So your book, Commit to Healing, and this is volume one.
Yes.
So was it a labor of love? And what do you hope readers will take away from your writing?
In this particular instance, I really, really want, especially people who are in the stage that I was in, because I kind of feel like I went through it later. A lot of times people go through this stage of like self identification, and self development, and we walk through all of these trials. And for me, everything kind of had to happen so quickly because I had such a delayed experience. My ability to come into my own didn't happen until I was 26. And then there was this huge maturation process. And so when I started writing and collecting these poems, it all happened. It was like two thick composition notebooks of like poems, and then there was like other scattered through other thick notebooks. And so yeah, I would definitely say it was a labor of love. It was it was kind of like, if you think about the process of kind of like understanding something and then allowing it to, it's like trauma, it's understanding the trauma and then allowing the trauma to kind of work its way out of your system in a way that is like manageable. That's what happened with the poetry. It was just like, this is a lot. And then it
Yeah.
became something that I was able to kind of paint my world with. And that that's a really incredible experience. So
Yeah, I too am a survivor of trauma, and it is a process to go through it and make it tangible. You know what I mean? Because you everybody needs the outlets, to process,
yes.
right? And so it's hard to collect all of that and put it in any form or sense that, any kind of order. So that must have been very difficult. Um,
I,
so, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I understand that. For me, it's like poetry is processing. It's just this big space for like, this is what this is, and this is
Yeah.
why I'm doing it. Like, so
Yeah, and I'll post a link to your book too, so if people are interested, they can buy it. What do you hope other people will feel from or experience from reading some of your poetry?
well, with poetry, people understand it how they understand it, but there are some specific things in there. Like, I have a poem called Freegasm that just talks about like the frustration of needing an orgasm, but it's also talking about like the strength and the power behind the fact that as women we're just kind of not seen. Um, um, there's this understanding of the fact that I think, and at that time, there's no thought about it, but at that time there was so much erasure around the fact that I was a Black woman who was getting my education, who was making my way in the world. And I was also still dealing with things like housing insecurity and food insecurity. And all of these things were just kind of like being, it was there and I was somewhat vocal about it, but it was like being ignored. So it was just this huge aspect of like, yeah, the second that I say, I need an orgasm, everybody's ears are all perked up. But the minute that I'm like, yeah, so I'm hungry or I haven't eaten and I'm barely, feeding my dog, like, where is all of the understand, where are the ears there, So politically it was this, it's surface, it's a lot of like erotic and sexual, um, understanding. But for me, sexuality is more of an understanding of the fact that like I have a right to be seen, I have a right to be heard, and the minute that I want to start talking about, it's kind of like this thing that we do culturally. The minute that we start talking about our bodies, and the minute that women just start saying things like breast and booty, like there's all of this attention. But when we start saying like things like hungry children and crying hungry mothers who are trying to feed their children, it doesn't resonate the same.
Yeah, it falls on deaf ears. They don't pay attention to that. But
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
use sexuality and bodies, and that gets the attention. That's very unfortunate, I think, about our culture. There's a lot of misogyny and aggression against women, you know,
yes,
and not just women, but, I think obviously any oppressed group experiences it probably harder. That void of just like you're not allowed to ask for help. You're not allowed
exactly,
to
exactly.
to to demand to be heard. You have to get the attention however you can to bring attention to what you feel is important,
Yes,
to what's actually important, like you have to provide for yourself and be happy and thrive. And it's hard. I don't, yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now. It's hard to just
yeah,
focus on one thing at a time.
it
Um,
is.
yeah, I try to, especially as a mother, I think it's just such a struggle to put things into words that offer some balance when that's not how it feels a lot of the time,
Yeah,
just existing in the world.
yes.
So yeah, that's definitely. Well, I'm glad you did your book. I'm excited to read it. I placed the order, but I didn't get it yet. I was like, we need to do the interview, but hopefully we'll do another one and then we can talk more on it.
Okay, I'm excited. Like, because was it the electronic or did you get a printed version, which
I
just
ordered
came
it.
out?
I like the hard copies.
Gotcha. Okay.
Those always, I like those better. I don't know. I'm a nerd and I just want to have the book in my hand. Yeah. So, but that'll be coming soon, and I can't wait because I love poetry. I think it's a beautiful art form. Let's see. So you and I actually got introduced through the Green community, the Green Party.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
following each other and boosting each other's work and things like that. So how long have you been in the Green Party? What motivated you to join?
Oh, to tell the long story is that for 20 years after the George Bush debacle, where that election just got straight stolen, I was just like, I am not okay with this, and so I found like, but at the time I didn't have enough information to know that there were other parties out there, and then somebody had mentioned like there's the Green Party, and I was like, oh, I want to be part of the Green Party, and I started identifying more so as like a communist leaning socialist leaning, and so I was really really proud of that. But then my none of my friends really identified that way, and my social circle was not really in that space, and I wasn't in that space. So over the years I kind of like bumped my head and found my way back recently at the end of 2019, I think, or 2020. I found my way back to the Green Party and met friends like you and other friends online and got into my own way. And so I've been here planted strongly since I want to say about like October of last year.
That's very cool. So you're from Michigan, right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
And what's your experience with Green Party in Michigan? Are there good networks or is it kind of slow going?
Michigan is a very unique area in how we learn how to click and in how we learn how to gatekeep. So yes, I'm sure there are some really good communities. I've found a really good, strong community. Um, but Michigan doesn't have a strong infrastructure for people who want to do something different because we're supported by the auto industry and we were supported by the prison industry. So we're supported by some very large corporate organizations who do not want infrastructure to be strong for people who want something different. So it can be very hard to maintain and manage and maintenance those relationships just because, infrastructure is so broken. It can mean you can meet somebody and not too long later they could be struggling with homelessness or um, is the same issues that it's just very frustrating to see recurring over and over and over again.
Oh, I definitely I feel you. Because Texas is very much run by industry. We've had plenty of instances where oil and gas corporations have overridden the public support to, like ban fracking or not have a pipeline put through. And it's painful
Yes.
to just see your community and people that you care about struggling. You know what I mean? How am I supposed to talk to somebody about electoral politics when they may or may not have their utilities paid, or their kids, they
Right.
don't have childcare. So
And
yeah, it's painful. I think part of the appeal to Green Party is that camaraderie though of working class people, because a lot of people I've met are working full time. They've got families they're supporting. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other things going on, and they still show up to meetings and they still write proposals and come up with ideas to try and do a little bit. But
that's
if we're all
awesome.
doing a little bit, we can make a big difference, right?
Right, right. And that's kind of like the one of the biggest aspects of it is we're so there's so much amplification around like support these big industries because they bring jobs, but they can only bring so many jobs. And
Yeah.
And you know, support this big industry because it's gonna be good for our economy. But it's like there's only so much economy that can be good for before, you know, it starts, you know, intercepting and intervening and interrupting, you know, what's happening in the community originally. And I think that we're beginning to understand I think our generation really has had to see the other side of that, because, you know, we saw what happened in the housing crisis. We saw like, oh yeah, we can just all just throw everything into the housing market and treat it like it's never gonna, like nothing can happen, it can't ever balloon and explode. And then we watched not just that balloon and explode, but we watched jobs be just disappear. We watched job security become the, not just the myth it was, but something of the past. So it's yeah. I get very, I was very impassioned and frustrated about it because I graduated twice and had to watch the economy just kind of be like, and it was like, wow, so who gonna pay for this degree? Like,
Mhm.
I'm sold to the highest bidder. Who wants this degree? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh God. So, are you talking about like millennial generation or
Yes.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I I think it's so hard to explain it to older people who are comfortable and haven't
Yes, it
had to
is.
experience the kind of level of inequality that we've suffered. I
The
mean, we can only
amount.
have so many recessions. I mean, if you look up the history of recessions, it's not just the Great Depression, it's not just the housing
Right.
crisis of '08. There's a lot in between that
Yes.
largely goes untalked about. And unless
Yes.
you have that firsthand experience, you're going to be unaware of the situation, which is very unfortunate.
It is. It is. It's almost like the propagandize our history so that, and rewrite it so that we don't ever talk about the fact that, you know, capitalism isn't as stable as they're trying to, as we've been taught. I know in school I was taught like this whole like thing about how capitalism is like this great, I don't
Free market, yeah, it's
know.
perfect. You're gonna be
Yeah,
fine. Yeah,
it's
go get those degrees, kids. Even though, you could have a master's degree and not have enough to support yourself with your master's degree. You've got to actually volunteer to work for free before you
yes.
do. Yeah, it's so wrong. I
It's
worry so
completely.
much.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, it's okay. I was just like, I just worry. Like I'm so concerned about the future.
I mean, it was, you know, it's so funny, like when money, when disposable income was much more common and it was something that I saw much more of. It was like, oh yeah, I'm going to freelance and I'm gonna make my own money and I had like a whole plan. And when you don't have, when I did not have like I didn't have a basic, you know, nest to be able to launch from, so I had to like build that nest. Well, now there's nowhere, you know, now I'm like over educated for, you know, certain positions and jobs. And so, you know, even if I am willing to be like, hey, I'll you know, wash your floors or I'll do whatever for, you know, a couple dollars, they're like, no, you're just too educated, like we can't hire you. So those are some of the realities that a lot of people that are the generations before us, maybe not Gen X so much, but definitely boomers, and like the older end of Gen X didn't have to necessarily deal with, unless they somehow lost a job. Um, and even then, they were probably still able to negotiate their way into something else. Um, so, and that's the reason why I am a socialist, because it's not the fact that I believe that people should be able to get paid without offering labor. It's the fact that people are so used to laboring that we don't even know what to ask for money for.
Yeah. And like someone like yourself who had all of the plans and did everything you did everything yourself, despite all that, still had to struggle. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, they were like, if you don't go get a college degree, you're going to end up homeless. Well, I mean, just That doesn't
Which
matter. That doesn't matter. You know, there's a lot of people who have degrees that just from COVID, if COVID wasn't the wake up call for people, I don't know what it's going to take because we can't have an economy without an environment. We all need water and air and earth, like all of those things to survive. So yeah, it is silly because I did get some of that propaganda about the free market and the get rich quick schemes and like your life goal. Like now a lot of people just want to be YouTube stars and like they get made fun of for that, but a lot of them do okay. you know
yeah, it's an
they're able
income.
to provide, yeah, they have stable income. And it's like, you'd think that millennials would be jaded and be angry about that, like that's not fair, but we're the ones paying for their Patreons, they're supporting them. Like do something else, because whatever they told you, whatever, this is the same thing they told us and it didn't work, because
It
this
didn't.
is like the largest consolidation of wealth that we've seen in America.
Yeah.
I know, I always feel like I bring things down too low.
I, I'm sorry. I feel like I do the same thing. I tend to, and I have this reaction to everything because my body just has to deal with that much pressure differently. I'm like, ah, um,
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah. No, especially if you've got any sort of anxiety or things like that, like your brain operates at a different level. And you're like fight or flight, no, fight or flight, like almost every other thing you're just trying to evaluate. And I think it's okay and appropriate at this point to be concerned and to be having anxiety about the future, because it's very, very obvious and very clear that things are not going very well right now, and people are suffering unnecessarily.
yes, yes. I think that's one of the things that's really frustrating about the fact that we only have a two-party system. Um, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating 20 years ago. But it's definitely very frustrating now because we're at the point where it's going, okay, we're where I know a lot of us are going, okay, there's a lot of things about the system that have been good as long as people go in with an understanding that they're working for what's great. But a lot of the kind of like a lot of the smoke and mirrors has cleared. So even though corruption existed 20 years ago, it existed 40 years ago. We're now seeing that we're now seeing through the smoke screen. Like the corruption is there. There's not as much cushion that they can hide behind because we need more as the people who are paying salaries and paying the taxpayer dollars that are paying for everything. And our system systemically, Congress and the people who are sitting very luxuriously are going, oh well, we just don't have the bandwidth for that. And it's kind of like, well, why? what
Right.
what are you doing that you don't have, that you can't use taxpayer funds for taxpayers?
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, like socialized medicine. So like I work in surgery, and most of the doctors that I work with, so like 10 years ago, they were like, or I remember, they were like, Obamacare is gonna ruin me. And now that's not, everybody's like, no, we need socialized medicine. Even the older folks who are fairly comfortable financially and they're very well established are behind socialized medicine. So you do have to wonder, like, why do our senators get paid over $150,000 with the best benefits? Why do they not feel obligated to do their jobs and represent the people? Why? And there's just so much corporate money and corporate interest in our laws and policies. It's like, what are we supposed to do? We can't just sit here feeling frustrated, you know?
Well, and the hope is to, the reason why I really like the Green Party is the hope is that we will collaborate and will come to terms. One of the most beautiful things about this country is that we have land and resources that allow us to be able to alternatively, um, organize. And because we've overlapped so heavily on the capitalistic free market side, hopefully we can create more than a balance and utilize and be able to come to an understanding, especially with a lot of the green energy and a lot of the green options that people are choosing to be able to organize in a way that will allow us to, you know, use land and use water. I love living in Michigan. It's a concern to me that there's a lot of health issues here. And I know that I know that there are biological, biopsychosocial, stratospheric, and atmospheric things that contribute to a lot of the health issues that people have. However, I really do think we need to invest in taking closer looks at our water, our four freshwater lakes, especially after, you know, what happened in Flint. They were connected to the Huron River, or to Huron Lake, excuse me. They were connected to Huron Lake, and then they were connected. Their water system got connected to the Flint River system, which, if we're willing, I mean, there's a lot of things to be said about the fact that the river was that polluted to begin with. So it's really important, and it was disturbing to me. I was making calls for the League of Conservation Voters, the Michigan League of Conservation Voters, and I spoke to a specific voter, and I was like, you know, you should call. You know, we're encouraging you to call your congressperson and to say the same. This person's like, well, they're a Democrat. Why would I call them? Like, why wouldn't they? And it was just like this blind trust in leadership, which we know we can't have. Like,
Yeah.
just from experience, we've seen firsthand that we can no longer have blind trust in leadership. And if no one has said it, then I'm going to say it. We cannot have blind trust in leadership. We cannot afford it. Our children cannot afford it. We have seen through the collapse in the economy multiple times that there is no longer the cushion of being able to blindly trust someone to represent our best interests. We need to be invested. We need to watch them. We need to ask questions. We need to I've been struggling with S1, but we need to read the bills. We need to read these bills. We need to see if the language is vague and cryptic. We need to start asking, why is this so vague and cryptic? You're talking to the American people. You're making a law. The law should be so easy to read that I can look and I can see exactly what you're doing. And if I can't, then there's something to be questioned about that, like with the For the People Act, which is not really for the people.
Right. There's all the fine print. You know what I mean? Because
Yes,
they publicize the good parts. They keep quiet the parts that are not particularly for you to hear, because you, the
definitely.
voter, are supposed to be in the place of that complacency that
Yes,
you anticipate these political media darlings to take care of you, but they don't. They're taking care of themselves, and
exactly.
chiefly they're taking care of their investors. So
Yeah.
I think, when I try to talk to people about Green Party and they're like, y'all don't have a chance. And it's like, you think we don't have a chance because
Right.
you don't know that we don't take corporate money. You don't understand that our grassroots democracy is actually what grassroots democracy is supposed to be. And it's not, yeah, and it's just so painful to try and just keep fighting that fight so consistently because people don't feel. And that's the other thing, we do have other options, you know what I mean, as
Yes.
as
Yes.
voters.
Yes.
But like internationally, the Green Party has been around for a very long time and is consistently on ballots, but here they just keep getting suppressed and pushed down. So you are helping Destiny Clayton with her campaign, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes.
you want to tell me a little bit about her and tell me what your role is?
Well, yes. Well, with Destiny Clayton, she is a firecracker. She is forward thinking and an awesome person to just watch work. Her work is phenomenal. She has a future scope to be able to forecast and see different ways that we can break things down. She's running for governor of Michigan. She would like to create a single payer insurance plan for people to be able to have insurance. She would like to eliminate housing insecurity. She's looking to just really make strong impacts for women. She also has recently decided and to amplify and be much more outspoken about sexism and sex work and the way that we treat sex workers in her platform, because it's so important, and it involves more than just women, but women are so strongly affected by it.
Mm,
My role, where everything to go as planned would be to be her lieutenant governor and to assist her as far as building out and recognizing the fact that one of the things that we have to do is academically we really need to get on top of the universities as far as their use of a business system to exploit students and to remove them from their advantages, off of the sake of the fact that they want to just collect money. And
mm,
there's many, if you speak to many students, one of the things that I don't know if you're familiar with this, but one of the things that culturally we've normalized is people who leave the university early. They just don't finish their degrees, whether they feel like, it wasn't right for them or whether they struggled with certain things. A lot of people carry a lot of personal responsibility, while when universities do not properly support their students, especially students of color, they know that they don't have a lot of resources. They know they don't have a lot of support. And oftentimes, what ends up happening is if you isolate those students enough, they'll eventually leave and you get the student loan money. You don't have to do anything for the degree. That's a new student and that you can place into the seat and you can get their money as well. And there was a crackdown during the Obama administration on some of it, but not enough. And so now we're seeing some very, especially in graduate school and higher education, we're seeing a lot of students that are experiencing a lot of things, harassment within higher education, um, wrongfully placed on academic probation, just full exploitation of student vulnerability. And then, universities taking full advantage of that, or having extended times in higher education programs. And so those are all things that, like, basically these are just people being abused. They're people being
mhm.
abused and being forced to pay for it. And then we're telling them, oh, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So, like, I mean, at some point there has to be, there enough has to be enough.
Yeah, no, I love that. That sounds great. I haven't had a chance to speak with her one-on-one, but I hope at some point I get to because she sounds like a really great person. And I'm really excited that you're potentially going to be running for lieutenant governor. That will be amazing.
And thank you. And it's awesome. Like when we're together, we're able to just have some really awesome conversations, especially about the things that we want to change. And um, with the fact that Destiny is younger, she's so she has a full scope. She's been able to see it from every single level or every generation before her, and even have an idea and understanding of the generations to come. So it's really awesome to have such a futuristic candidate that is going to come and change Michigan, and I'm excited.
No, that's great. I'm excited too. I hope we can help each other out because what I've been very blessed with in my run and reaching out and talking to people is that there are lots of people willing to be allies, and not just allies, but they if you help them in their community, they help you in your community. And there's just the framework is there. It just takes a little bit of you have to be humble and reach out and not just there's just this arrogance, I think, in, with the Democratic and Republican uh, politicians. They think that you owe them their vote, right? They come out to you and they're like, "How can I get your vote?" But you're not going to see them coming to volunteer their time to help your neighborhood or share your GoFundMe pages or things like that. Green candidates and green people do that all the time. They're like mutual aid, and that you know what I mean. They're all about that. So it's just it's really interesting because I think now's a good time for people to start paying better attention to
Yes, it
green
is.
candidates because capitalism is not going to solve the problem. The capitalism is the reason why a lot of the problems we have are so deep. And
Yes.
if we can't, so I mean, like eco-socialism, if you think about a green jobs program, you know what I mean, where you're teaching people how to work in sustainable farming or sustainable energy, I mean, that's going to help countless people, you know what I mean, in Michigan and Texas, all over the place. So
Yes.
I'm really interested in following her a little bit more closely. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to each other. And I'm so glad that you took time to talk with me today. This was really good because I don't know, we've only talked to like once before.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just we all have the same, I think I feel it that we are all very well aligned because we all are humanitarians and we care about the environment.
Yeah.
It's good to meet fellow, you know, fellow people who are concerned with the same things. Is there
Yes.
anything else that you want to add before we close up?
Well, I also want to say and extend like thank you so much for running. Thank you for all of the work that you've been doing. I love watching you. I definitely love watching everything that you've been up to. And this has been awesome. So I would like I really love to at some point maybe even have like a panel or something where we can all kind of come together and talk about things because women should be able to lead. Representation should just be stronger and better throughout the country anyway. At this point, we've all contributed. We've all contributed to the good, and we all carry a fair amount of exposure to the bad, and so it would be nice to have a sit down and kind of talk about what we're doing throughout the states. Um, but yeah, I definitely want to encourage everybody, please buy a copy of Commit to Healing, my poetry book discussing trauma. And definitely, I would love to keep up in the future. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. As soon as this one's ready, I'm gonna format it and I'm just gonna post it on YouTube. We're gonna start doing more of this, and so hopefully we could do more interviews and talk to more people. And yeah, because I'm excited about the future because I really feel like now's our time to shine. You know, we waited long enough.
Yes, I'm so excited. And if there's background, it's just I have a toddler and my husband is with her. So
I no, I understand. You saw my kid jumping on my bed earlier, so
I did. She was
so,
dancing.
thank you for the compliments too, and for tuning in to some of the stuff I do. We will do this again, and thank you again for your time. This was awesome. Y'all,
Awesome.
please buy her book. Okay, I'll buy you a copy.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'm gonna stop recording. Thank you.